So I wanted to talk about CSS animations because it's fun. They make the things do things. The technical definition is animations is a module of CSS and it's built in. You don't have to import it or anything. It's just there. And it lets you change the values of CSS properties at specific points in time called keyframes. So it lets you like really control things and make things look very specifically the way you want to make them look, which has so many cool possibilities. Transitions is another module that's very similar. I was going to include it, but I don't have time, so just check it out if you're interested. But in short, CSS animations just kind of can make your HTML elements flat on the page like come alive, which is fun. So we've definitely all seen this before in different places on the web. With loading screens, you'll see like a little spinny icon or a bouncing logo or something. When you're scrolling on a website, pieces will move and make it feel like it's an integrated experience. Calls to action, so you might like hover over a button and it gets bigger. And other cool artistic stuff, which if I have time, I would love to show you. But if I don't, I have examples in my slide notes, so you can check it out yourself. What was that keyframes thing again? I'm going to show you. So you can think of keyframes as points on a line, and this line represents time. So like the total time of our animation that we're programming. So the first point obviously would be 0, or you can call it from, but most commonly 0%. And we're going to set a CSS style at 0%. So at the beginning of the animation, it starts with a background color of red, for example. This last point, you can guess, is 100%, or you can call it 2. And we'll set the same style, but with a different value. So we'll call the background color blue. And then there's 50% and 25 and 75 and 35. And you can choose any point on this line. You could choose 62.57 if you wanted to. So you can get really granular with it. And that's sort of the magic of keyframes. So I'm going to show you some code that I put together. There she is. So this is our little demo. These are just kind of sad, dead boxes, and we're going to make them come alive with some keyframes. So these are just little HTML divs, kind of nothing to them. They each have a class that's the same and an ID that's different. Go away, go away. Okay, so I'll kind of go in detail about these first couple so you get the hang of like what all this is. And then as we go on, it'll be a little bit more intuitive. So this is our box 1. You name the animation whatever you want, but ideally something that sort of is descriptive. So this one is going to slide. This is the length of the animation. The timing function, I'm going to leave as linear for right now because I want you to see what that looks like, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. And here we are with keyframes. So keyframes calls the name of the animation that we have named. And we have our 0% and our 100%. So the beginning and the end of that animation duration time. So this transform translate X property just means we're going to move the thing on the x-axis, so horizontally left to right across the screen. So let's see what this looks like. This is just our first little box. There it goes, just slides around. And if you notice at the end, it ended at the right of the screen and then it sort of snapped back. So in our second example, I'm going to show you how to sort of fix that so it'll come back to us. Real quick, I want to talk about animation timing function before we move on. So if you notice that slid really like kind of at a consistent pace across the screen, it didn't speed up or slow down. And in the natural world, that's not very common. So typically we actually use this one called ease, which means it actually like speeds up and slows down. So it looks more like a natural movement that you would see. Otherwise, it's a little bit like robotic looking. So that looks like that. So it's kind of like you're sliding something across the floor. So the second one, going back to I'm going to add a second keyframe in the middle. So we've got 0%, 50%, and 100%. Otherwise, this one's the same as box 1. So this one's going to bounce back to us. So it starts at 0 on the x-axis. It goes to 1100 pixels on the x-axis, and then it comes back to 0. So let's see what that looks like. And it comes back. I want to show a different timing function. So the first one was linear, and then we saw ease. This one's called ease in out, and I think it looks a little bit more like a real bounce. So this is the third one. So you can see like how the timing is, they come back at the same time, but the motion is just a little bit different. For this one, we're going to check out a new animation property called iteration count. It's an easy one, just means it keeps bouncing. So that one stops, but that one keeps bouncing. Okay, and then I want to show you how you can use different properties that aren't just translating across the x-axis, because there is so much more than you can do with this. So the next one is going to be colors. So we start with a color and we end with the same color, so that there's like a continuous transition, like a continuous flow. So let's see what that looks like. And instead of moving, it just cycles through these colors and they transition from one to the other, which is really nice. Fun. Another property that we can use is scale. And as you can imagine, so this is transform scale, and then it goes to 2 and then back to 1. So you can imagine by the name, grow, shrink, what it's going to do. And one more example of a property we can use is rotate. It's called spinny box. So I'm pretty sure you know what that one's going to be too. It spins. And then for one final example, I wanted to show you how it looks if you use multiple properties together. So here we're using background color, transform scale, transform translate X, which is at x-axis, and then all back to the beginning. So again, the keyframes are 0, 50, and 100. I could add 25, 35, whatever I wanted, but I was just keeping it simple. So this extra fun box does 3 different things. It slides, it changes color, it gets bigger and smaller. So this is just like the very tip of the iceberg with these things. Because I had to keep it so short, there's just so much more to see, but I made just this list of resources. So if you're interested in getting into this, you can check out more. Because there are so many possibilities, I think it's good to, like, if you want to integrate some of these things, browse some of these types of sites like CodePen Animations, these awards for best web design. So you can see like what the possibilities are, because what I showed you obviously is really simple. And then here are some resources that I use to put together my talk that are more like technical stuff and how to do things. So if anyone has questions, I'm happy to answer. And I'm probably at time. I have so much more I want to show you, but I'll stop.
You have a couple minutes for questions, I think.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
If nobody has questions, I have a couple more things that I could show you. I should probably look at the chat to see if anyone's asking questions.
You'll get overwhelmed with people saying how great you are, so don't even bother.
I won't. Okay, well, I'm gonna, let's see. I'll go through 3 really quick tips and then like 3 examples of like real world animation cases. So tip number 1, less is more. And I'm gonna show you how, sorry, don't know how to use this thingy. Can you move? Okay, less is more, and I'm going to show you a funny website that will illustrate this. This is actually a joke website, to be fair, but like, it's called Make Front End Crap Again. Look at all these animations. Don't be like this. Does this bring you back? So yeah, that's how not to use animations. But in general, for real, like less is more. It's just to like highlight little things. Like you like basically, well, I'll get to that in my 3rd tip. My 2nd tip is to unify your animation. So find some way that you can make them all the same, like the timing duration or the type of timing function, that type of movement, so that they don't look like this thing's flying over here, this thing's really slow. So find some way that you can sort of put them together. And then the third tip is to animate with intention. So don't just say like, I want to animate things, but say like, use it as a solution to a problem. Like, I want to draw attention to this thing, or I want to make this feel more like a 3D experience. So that's like a good time to use animations. Or with a loading screen, like I want to keep my user from being bored. I want to show you my favorite little loading screen on GitHub. It's a dragon who's spitting flames. And this uses keyframes. This is in my slides, so you can check it out, but it uses keyframes for like the flame, for the blush opacity. Like we could make this easily just using keyframes. So just a cute example.